The millionaire finds his secret triplets in a hospital and faces an astonishing twist. James Westbrook stood in the stark hospital corridor, anxiety buzzing in the air like a live wire. The pale walls seemed to close in on him, each ticking clock a reminder of the moments he'd missed. Unbeknownst to him, while he had chased after boardroom victories and stock market highs, a secret lay hidden behind closed doors, his very own 5-year-old triplets. He had only come to see Catherine Collins, his former girlfriend, who was fighting a fierce battle with an autoimmune disease. Their past was a tangled mess. He had walked away, convinced success was all that mattered. Yet, here he was now, amidst the beeping machines and sterile smells, his heart racing as he learned he was a father. A fact that felt unreal, like a plot twist in a bad movie. Voices echoed through the halls. Laughter burst as if trying to break the gloom. Following the sounds, he turned a corner and found them. He crouched down, embracing the chaos, letting their joy wash over him. Suddenly, he wasn't just a businessman. He was their dad. And that thought was both terrifying and thrilling. But reality loomed. As he turned back to the nurse's desk, a whispered conversation caught his ear. "Did you hear? The finagling with her treatment could make things worse," one nurse said, her face pale under the fluorescent lights. His heart sank. Catherine's struggle was not just hers alone. It was intertwined with these girls, his girls. He rushed to Catherine's room, the door ajar, revealing her pale figure propped against the pillows, a weak smile breaking her lips. "You found them," she whispered, her voice a fragile thread. The joy in her eyes clashed with the fear etched deep in her features. "Catherine, what does this mean for us?" he asked, his voice low, laden with responsibility and guilt. Just as the words left his mouth, a doctor hurried past him, urgency in her steps and a clip. "We need to talk. Now." The world spun. He was on the precipice of fatherhood, love, and family, under duress. His heart raced, facing a choice now hung in the air: the life he had created or the one he had lost. Is it worth risking everything he had worked for? Just as he began to understand his path forward, a hidden secret flickered in the air, something he could sense but not decipher. James stood frozen, overwhelmed. As he lingered at the door, the faintest whisper slipped out. "They aren't just triplets, you know." His stomach twisted, questions spiraled, and as the weight of the revelation hit him, a daunting choice loomed ahead. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important alert. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And while you're here, drop that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact." James stood frozen, still processing the nurse's cryptic words. "They aren't just triplets, you know." The statement clung to the air, heavy with unspoken truths. His heart raced as he tried to piece together the fragments swirling in his mind. Triplets, his daughters. But what did she mean? Before he could push for answers, he took a step into Catherine's room, his heart thrumming in his chest. The warmth of the little girls faded away, replaced by the stark reality of Catherine's condition. The smile on her face flickered like a candle in the wind. "James, they need us," she breathed, her voice a fragile echo. His mind was racing, thoughts colliding like a storm. "What did that nurse mean?" he blurted out, his voice edged with urgency. "What are you hiding?" Catherine's gaze dropped, a shadow passing over her features. "It's complicated," she hesitated, and he could see the struggle etched in the lines of her face. They're not just born from love." The words hung heavy, casting a shroud of confusion. James felt the air thicken, a knot tightening in his stomach. What are you saying? Panic edged into his voice. He needed clarity, but all he got was silence. Then, a loud crash rang out in the hallway, jerking his attention away. Metal clanged against cold tiled floors, echoing through the ward like an alarm. The door flew open, and a doctor rushed in, her eyes wide with concern. "Collins, we have a situation," she shouted. "What's happening?" James asked sharply, his protective instincts kicking in. "We need to secure the area. There's been a breach in the security system," she announced, glancing nervously toward the door. "Stay calm. We're working on it." His heart pounded, a mismatch of fear and a desperate need for answers. "What kind of breach? Is it about Catherine?" "Not exactly," she said, her tone flat, eyes starting to the hallway. "But we need to protect every patient here. Don't leave the room." He turned back to Catherine, watching as her face drained of color. "Catherine, please," he urged. "What are you afraid of?" The tension in the air became almost suffocating. The little girl's laughter seemed far away now, replaced by a suffocating silence. Just then, Emma rushed into the room, eyes wide, hands gripping Mia's tiny shoulders. "Daddy, there's someone in the hospital." "What?" he asked, dread pooling in his gut. Chloe peeked around Emma, her face pale. "A man! He wasn't allowed. He said he's looking for the triplets." Every hair on James's body stood on end. "What do you mean, the triplets?" he barked, a chill creeping down his spine. Was this some kind of cruel joke? Before the girls could answer, the sound of footsteps thudded outside, heavy and unyielding. A figure loomed in the doorway, menacing and shadowed. "I find them," he announced, voice gravelly, eyes piercing. "I find my daughters." James's mind raced. "No, who are you? What do you want?" The man stepped forward, revealing a face twisted with anguish and rage. "You stole them from me," he shouted, every word dripping with accusation. James staggered back, breathless. The world around him spun, reality shattering into pieces. "What are you talking about?" he whispered, his heart sinking into an abyss. A bewildering revelation crashed over him. This wasn't just Catherine's past he was facing. It was his own. In that moment, everything changed. The life he'd built, the children he'd just begun to know. It all hung in a fragile balance as tumultuous truths threatened to tear them apart. "Who are you?" he breathed, the cold of fear wrapping around him, choking the words. But the man's next words sent shockwaves through him. "I am their father." James's heart dropped. Every question, every doubt, now swirled into a dark storm of confusion. Was everything he believed a lie? The hospital walls seemed to close in, the urgency of the moment suffocating him. How could he confront this reality? Who was he now? James's heart dropped. Every question, every doubt, now swirled into a dark storm of confusion. Was everything he believed a lie? "Who are you?" he breathed, the cold of fear wrapping around him, choking the words. The man's eyes blazed with an intensity that muddied the air between them. "I am their father," he said again, and the sound echoed with a chilling finality. James staggered backward, the room spinning. "That's not possible," he gasped, his thoughts racing. "Catherine would never. I mean we." The man interrupted, his voice a growl. "You think you can just waltz in here, after abandoning her? You've taken everything from me." "Taken?" James felt a pulse pounding in his temples. Had Catherine lied? This was too much, too fast. He turned to Catherine, pleading. "What is going on? Tell me the truth." Catherine was pale, tears welling up in her eyes. "James, I tried to protect you. But before she could finish, the hospital lights flickered. There was a crackle, and the air felt charged with a tense energy. An alarm blared, drowning out all sounds. "Everyone stay calm," a nurse shouted, rushing to secure the door. The sound of distant chaos surged through the halls. James felt a surge of primal fear. "What's happening?" "An evacuation," the nurse called back. fear visible in her eyes. There's a deafening crash came from the corridor, followed by frantic footsteps. The man, the father, bounded across the room, looking back toward the door with an almost wild intensity. "Get the girls," he shouted. "They need to leave now." Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. James's protective instincts kicked in. "No," he barked, stepping forward, blocking him. "You don't get to play the hero now. You have no right to then." But as he stood there, tension coursing through his veins, a freeze of realization gripped him. If this man was their father, who was he? "Stop," James shouted, but the man's eyes flicked to the window. "I'll get them out," he insisted, desperation twisting his features. Then, in that harrowing moment, another crash thundered against the door. It splintered. Chaos surged in. James's instincts kicked harder, adrenaline pumping. He turned to the girls. "Stay close." As he spun back to confront the man, there was a sudden explosion of noise, a pulsing drone that grew louder. Confusion erupted. As James wrestled with the turmoil, he saw another figure slip in through the doorway, cloaked in emergency lights. A police officer. "Drop the children. Take your hands off them." James's heart raced. "This is my..." Suddenly, behind the officer, a woman appeared. Her face was pale, eyes wide with panic. "No, wait." "Don't hurt him." The officer froze, uncertainty flashing in his eyes. "Who are you?" "I'm their mother too," she cried. And the revelation hung heavy in the room, like a thunderclap. James's stomach twisted. 3 parents? The world around him began to fracture. Who were these people? What could possibly be true? "James," Catherine screamed, her voice urgent, breaking through the chaos. "You need to understand. The girls they're part of a bigger secret. One we never meant to uncover. Now it's all falling apart." His mind reeled. Lies? Betrayals? A truth so twisted it could unravel everything? Just then, Emma, Chloe, and Mia, wide-eyed and trembling, looked up at him, their innocence too precious for this world spiraling out of control. As shadows moved closer, James felt the weight of the choices ahead pressing down on him. Who could he trust? What was really happening? In that moment of unbearable uncertainty, he made a choice to protect them at all costs. But from whom? Everything shifted, the ground below him crumbling into chaos. James felt the tension radiate through the small room, a knot tightening in his gut. He looked between the man who claimed to be their father and the women who stood with an air of desperation. The world outside seemed to blur. All he could see were the terrified faces of his daughters. Chloe grabbed his hand. "Daddy, I'm scared," she whispered, her voice trembling. James knelt beside her, squeezing her small fingers tightly. "I'm here. I won't let anything happen to you." He glanced back at the intruder, whose face was a mix of panic and rage. "You're not taking them," James shouted, a fierce protectiveness igniting within him. But the man shouted back, "You don't understand. They're in danger. You have no idea what they are." Before James could respond, another crash echoed through the hallway, this time followed by a loud bang that sent vibrations through the floor. The shadows shifted, and chaos descended. The officer stumbled back, trying to regain control, but the room was rapidly spiraling into chaos. "Get the girls," he yelled again, gripping the panic that wrote itself on the faces of everyone in the room. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the lights flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. Only the blaring red emergency lights illuminated the space, casting eerie shadows and unpredictable flickers across the walls. "Everyone stay calm," the nurse yelled, her voice barely cutting through the panic. "We need to..." There was a sudden, piercing scream from the hallway. A woman rushed into the room, breathless and frantic. "They found us! We need to go, now!" James turned, ready to question her, but something in her eyes made him pause. They were alive with fear, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Who are you?" James demanded, feeling a surge of confusion as the man in front of him began to step back. "Get away from my daughters," the man growled, But now there was a quaver in his voice. The woman stumbled further in, almost collapsing against the wall. "I'm their mother too," she gasped. A chilling hush fell over the room. Time seemed to stretch as the reality of her words slammed into him. "What?" James's mind reeled. "That can't be." "Yes," she shouted, voice cracking. "Catherine is not just your past. She's been keeping this from everyone. They are just triplets. They are the result of..." "Of what?" James pressed, his heart racing. He needed answers. The gravity of the situation bore down heavily on him, wrestling against the disarray of emotions. But before she could explain, the officer shouted an order to evacuate, generating a tidal wave of movement. The air turned thick with fear and urgency. Suddenly, the hospital alarms grew louder. "Code Black!" the nurse screamed, panic edging her tone. "We need to leave, now!" In that instant, the reality of the moment twisted sharply. The man stood frozen, as if struck by lightning. "The twins, their lives are at stake," he shouted, voice raw, turning to the woman with desperation. "You promised to keep them safe. Don't you realize?" she shouted back, panic straining her words. "You're the one who put them in danger." James's chest tightened. "What does that mean?" he pushed, breathless, feeling the world spin out of control. Every fiber of him screamed for the truth. And just then, in the chaos, something unexpected happened. The man fell to his knees, head in his hands. His cries spilled out, unguarded and raw. "I was set up. I didn't choose to lose them." James felt a shocking wave of empathy wash over him despite the chaos. There was something more behind those eyes, something buried beneath the rage. And then he realized the truth was tangled in lies, a connection deeper than betrayal. Behind him, Emma grabbed his arm, wide-eyed. "Daddy, who is he really?" The room hushed under the weight of that question. James's heart raced. He turned, desperate for clarity. "I don't know." Then the building rattled as another wave of noise echoed, and a new fear crept in. Dark figures appeared at the end of the hallway, marching with a purpose. The kind of intent that froze blood and tightened throats. "Run," James shouted, instincts kicking into gear. He pulled Chloe, Mia, and Emma close, but the man's anguished cry ripped through the air. "No, you can't leave without knowing the truth. There." But his words were swallowed in the din of sirens and screams. The familiar hospital walls felt like a cage. Darkness loomed, and James knew with chilling clarity that everything was about to change. As the shadows closed in, he pulled his daughters tight, wondering what lay ahead. Truth, danger, and a lifetime's worth of secrets intertwined. James felt the world trap him in a whirlwind of noise, fear, and confusion. The menacing figures moved closer, shadows weaving through the chaos. His heart raced, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Get away from my daughters," he shouted again, trying to protect them from threats, whether born from blood or circumstance. And then, just like that, the door burst open again. This time, it was a group of security personnel, dark uniforms shifting with purpose. "Everyone, stay where you are," one of them commanded, a deep voice cutting through the noise. James turned, thinking of escape, but the moment stretched painfully as chaos unfolded. The officer's command echoed, and the children huddled closer, fingers gripping his arms. A cold sweat. They were trapped. "Sir, we need you to step away from the door," one of the officers said, eyeing the man still kneeling, tears staining his cheeks. James glanced at the man, still trembling with emotion. "What do you know about my kids?" he barked, desperation clawing at his throat. Suddenly, the man looked up with a wild gleam in his eyes. "The truth," he gasped. "They're not just ours, they're genetically modified." The revelation struck like a hammer. James felt his heart stop. "What?" he whispered, his mind racing. "What do you mean?" Before he could question him further, chaos erupted. The air thickened, sharp with tension. The officer stepped closer, eyes darting to the doorway as if expecting an attack. "We need to secure the area." "Secure?" the woman shouted back, panic flooding her tone. "We need to get them out of here." The alarms wailed overhead, drowning out every word. And amidst the shouting, James felt the floor shake beneath him, as if someone was thundering closer from the hallway. The lights flickered violently, then went out. Darkness wrapped around them like a shroud, disorienting. Only the red emergency lights pulsed, creating a macabre dance of shadows. "Keep the girls close," he whispered urgently, clenching his fists. The flickering lights revealed terrified faces, confusion echoing in the air. Then from the shadows, a woman stepped forward. "They are the last hope." The noise escalated, blending with the chaotic echoes of uncertainty, panic tangling in the air. James's mind was reeling. Hope for what? His world began to shatter as he wrestled with every fragmented truth that surrounded him. The whispers of lies and betrayals spun around, merging with the pounding chaos of alarms and shouted commands. Then, the woman stepped forward again, breathing heavily. "I can't hold it back any longer. They are part of an experiment that could change everything we know." Around him, the air thickened with disbelief. "You're lying," he said, throat tight with betrayal. "No," she pleaded, tears shimmering as the weight of her words sank in. "It started years ago. They're not just triplets. They are engineered to be the best of human potential." James staggered back, the gravity of her words leaving him gasping. "We've been lied to, used." The chaos exploded around them as an overwhelming noise surged in. The screaming alarms clawed at his sanity while the shadows danced frantically, each moment spiraling closer to the truth. Amid the madness, a loud crash breached the tense silence, making the walls tremble. Everyone turned in shock. Then silence hit, the unmistakable sound of something breaking apart. James felt a sick fear crawl up his spine. Outside, the storm of voices began to fade, as if the world was holding its breath. "Stay with me," he shouted to his daughters, gripping their hands tightly, filled with dread. And just then, from the darkness, a hand reached out. "James, don't let them take them." That voice. Catherine stepped into view, tears streaming down her face. "You have to listen to me. There's more. We're all connected." Her words hung heavy, charged with the feeling of inevitable change. James felt the ground beneath him shift. The secrets were about to unravel, and nothing would ever be the same again. "Who are we really?" he whispered, clutching his children closer as uncertainty blanketed the room around them. As fingers tightened, the shadows shifted. A thunderous beat heralding chaos ahead. The walls began to tremble with the truth that was finding its way to the surface, threatening to expose every lie they had ever known. And in that moment, darkness enveloped them all. James felt the world trap him in a whirlwind of noise, fear, and confusion. The menacing figures moved closer, shadows weaving through the chaos. His heart raced, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Get away from my daughters!" he shouted again, trying to protect them from threats, whether born from blood or circumstance. The tension was thick as the officers surveyed the room, unsure how to act in the brewing storm. Behind him, the anguished father struggled to regain his composure, desperate to protect his own. "James!" Catherine cried out, her voice rising. "We can't let them take the girls." But just as the words hung in the air, the door swung open violently, slamming against the wall. A figure stepped into the room, broad-shouldered and wearing a jacket marked with a government emblem. The moment he entered, everyone held their breath, eyes darting to the new arrival. "Stand down," he commanded, voice booming. "Everyone here is in serious danger." "What do you mean?" James snapped, anger flaring. "Who the hell are you?" "Agent Blake," he replied, scanning the room like a hawk. "I'm here to secure these children. They are not safe here." "Not safe?" The urgency in his voice felt like a punch. The The girls clutched James tighter, fear flickering in their wide eyes. From who? From everyone, Agent Blake said, face taut with determination. They're wanted, not just by the father, by people much worse. What? James staggered back, a weight of the moment crashing down. He could barely register the chaos swirling around him. They're part of an experiment. Social engineering gone rogue, Blake continued, each word dripping with gravity. And it was all set in motion long before they were born. They have abilities. James swallowed hard, struggling to grasp what this meant. Abilities? His voice cracked. Before he could digest the implications, the little girl's curiosity burst forth. What abilities? Mia asked, voice shaking. Strange ones, Blake replied, eyes narrowing. Heightened intelligence, an aptitude for manipulation beyond their years. They are among the last of a line created for something bigger than we can fathom, a power that has fallen into the wrong hands. Catherine took a step forward, horror evident on her face. You can't be serious. How is this happening? Everything you thought you knew has been orchestrated, Agent Blake said, looking past James. There are powers at play, and this hospital is the center of it. We need to move now. Just then, the shadows at the doorway shifted again, as another person stepped through, this time wearing a lab coat and carrying a clipboard. No, she shouted, and everything shifted. Dr. Simmons, Agent Blake said sharply. You shouldn't be here. Stop this, she pleaded, rushing toward James and the girls. You don't understand what they're capable of. You need to hide them, protect them. James felt the ground fall from under him. What do you know? He asked, panic accentuating the urgency in his voice. Dr. Simmons inhaled sharply. I made them. I was part of the team that created the program. They're not just genetic material. They're keys to our future. She paused, her voice trembling. And someone is coming for them. Someone who will stop at nothing to get them back. Just then, the alarms intensified, punctuating the atmosphere with a deafening urgency. The lights flickered again, and shadows swirled into a darker corner of the room. Who is coming? James demanded, voice barely above a whisper, heart pounding. Cyborgs, Blake stated bluntly, eyes grim. The result of the same program. They've hunted them down. This place has been compromised. In that heartbeat, the very foundations of James's existence began to crumble. All the connections, the love, the doubt, the secrets, seemed to spiral into a vortex he couldn't control. The reality he believed was dissolving into a new chaos. Daddy? Chloe whispered, clutching his leg tight, her voice small amidst the chaos. Do we have to go? Mia added, confusion mingling with fear. James knelt to their level, staring into their innocent eyes, his heart aching. I won't let anyone hurt you, he vowed. But fear gnawed at him, panic radiating through the room. But just as he resolved to protect them, another loud crash echoed through the corridor. Something, or someone, was close. The walls seemed to tremble, and he could feel time slipping away. The game had changed, pulling everyone deeper into a terrifying web of truth. Get ready to move, Blake shouted, urgency driving his words as adrenaline surged. And then the unexpected happened. A blinding flash, brighter than any light he had seen, exploded from the hallway. Moments later, the shockwave knocked him off his feet. James shielded the girls, holding them tight as darkness enveloped everything. As shadows closed around them and silence filled the air, one thought surged in his mind. What had they become part of? And as the darkness swallowed the room, he felt a chilling question rise. Who were they, really? The blinding flash enveloped them, drowning the chaos in white light. James squeezed his daughters tighter, shielding their trembling bodies as the world around them shimmered. And just as suddenly as it started, the brightness vanished, plunging them back into a darkness thick with tension. But this darkness was different. It felt alive. James blinked, trying to adjust, to make sense of what had just happened. He heard scattered breaths, felt the cool air prickle against his skin, suffocating and thick. "Girls," he whispered, panic tightening his chest. "Are you okay?" "I can't see," Emma cried, her voice breaking. "Hold my hand. Just hold on." James responded, his pulse racing. He could hear Catherine, her panicked breaths matching his own. Then, out of the oppressive silence, a voice erupted, a low, guttural growl that sent chills down James's spine. "You should have never walked into my trap." "What?" James gasped, heart hammering. He turned, trying to find that menacing sound's source. The shadows shifted, revealing a figure standing tall and broad in the doorway. The light flickered back on for just a moment, illuminating a glint of metal. A weapon? No, not just any weapon. A device that looked like the very essence of science fiction. "Step away from the girls," Agent Blake bellowed, positioning himself in front of James, body tense and poised. "Get them back." "You don't understand," the figure snarled. "They're needed. You can't protect them from what's coming." "What's coming? Who are you?" James demanded, voice trembling with fear and anger. But as the figure took a step forward, the lights came back on fully, illuminating all the faces in the room. And suddenly, everything fell into place. An unthinkable truth smacked him like a wall of ice. The operator's features morphed, clarity slicing through the confusion. "Sarah," James whispered, disbelief washing over him. "Surprise," she said with a sardonic grin, her eyes glimmering with something dangerously twisted. The panic in the room turned to dread, as the haunting familiarity of her face sunk in. Sarah had been a trusted colleague, someone who had been by his side in every boardroom deal, every investment strategy. Now, here she was, standing in a hospital surrounded by chaos, and she was a part of this twisted web. But why?" James struggled to find words, his mind spinning. "Because," she sighed, running a hand through her hair, a false sense of calm enveloping her. "I was the one who set this all in motion. I needed them for my research." "Research? They're children," James barked, wrath bubbling inside him, but uncertainty crept in like fog. How could he confront her? The deep-seated loyalty and betrayal twisted together in painful knots. "The world needs them," Sarah continued. "There's something the world has been desperate for. Better than us, made to be superior." James felt as if the ground shifted beneath him. "You don't know what you're doing. These are my daughters. They're not experiments." The moment hung in the air, heavy and charged. "Maybe not just yours," she replied quietly, a shadow of regret passing across her face before she hardened again. "But I did what needed to be done to secure the future." "Secure it?" Catherine shouted, stepping forward. "You're destroying their future." With the weight of betrayal hanging heavy, James glanced at his girls, their innocent eyes wide with misunderstanding. They didn't know the tempest swirling around them. A sudden crashing sound came from the hallway, snapping James back into focus. "We have to go, now." But as they began to move, Sarah pulled a small device from her pocket, a sleek piece of technology that hummed ominously. "I can help you," she cried, desperation coloring her voice. "We can control this. We can make it right." The air crackled as James processed the enormity of her claim. "What if you've already gone too far?" he murmured, doubts flooding his mind. Then came the crushing realization, the true nature of the triplets. Linked by genetic strands and manipulated for something entirely different than what he had imagined. Had they ever been safe, or were they always intended to be pawns in a game much larger than himself? As the perimeter around them tightened, the shadows swarmed like hungry wolves. The weight of choices loomed large, and it settled over him like a thick fog. The truth about his daughters hung suspended, ready to unravel everything he thought he knew. "What do you mean by controlling everything?" James stammered, eyes darting to the girls. The answer lingered in the air, unspoken yet tangible. Just as the walls around him began to close in, he understood one thing. Nothing would ever be the same again. James felt the weight of Sarah's words pressing down on him, the truth suffocating. He glanced at his daughters, the innocence in their eyes a stark contrast to the chaos that spun around them. This wasn't just about him anymore. Their lives were intertwined with shadows he didn't understand. "Listen to me," he yelled, turning back to Sarah. "They're children, not experiments." Sarah's face twisted, revealing a flicker of regret before the mask of resolve set back in. "You don't grasp the implications, James. This is bigger than you can imagine." Suddenly, the room vibrated with energy, as if the walls themselves reacted to her defiance. The shadows flickered, and James felt a glimmer of panic rise in his chest. Just as he opened his mouth to respond, a deafening crash reverberated through the corridor, followed by distant screams and chaos that echoed like a haunting melody. "Now," Blake shouted, his voice cutting through the turmoil. "We have to move. They're here." Before he could comprehend what that meant, the lights flickered again, casting disturbing shadows. An icy chill crept through the air, raising the hairs on the back of his neck. "Who's coming?" James demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. At that moment, a loud explosion erupted from the end of the hallway, followed by the unmistakable sound of marching boots, heavy, deliberate, as if an army approached. "Everyone, back!" one of the officers barked, panic creeping into his voice. The security personnel fell into formation, shielding the girls, as James felt dread pooling in his stomach. As the smoke began to clear, a woman emerged, tall and clad in tactical gear, a commanding presence framed by the chaos. "Stand down. We're here to contain the situation." James squinted through the haze, heart racing. "And you are?" "I'm Agent Thompson," she replied, her gaze piercing. "The children need to be relocated immediately. This is far beyond your control." "Relocated?" James's voice trembled. "You mean taken away?" "Yes, we don't have time for arguments," she snapped, frustration bubbling. "They're in serious danger here." Before he could respond, a loud crash erupted from the windows, and glass shattered violently, raining down like deadly confetti. James instinctively threw himself over the girls, feeling the sharp sting of fear claw at all of them. "Get down," Blake shouted, pulling everyone back, but the chaos roiled around them. Agents flooded into the room, and within moments, the hallway exploded in a flurry of shouting. "Get the files," someone screamed, urgency in their voice. "We need to secure the data." Suddenly, Sarah rushed forward, her expression frantic. "No, you don't have to do this," she pleaded, desperation lacing her voice. "They're my daughters too." And with that declaration, the air thickened, a palpable silence hanging like a curtain. "Your daughters?" James whispered, heart dropping into an abyss. The room spun, turning what he thought he knew into a fragmented reality. "James?" Sarah broke off, panic and guilt illuminating her features. "I didn't know how to tell you. I thought I could protect you. Protect them." "What have you done?" James gasped, his world crashing around him. Was it all a lie? But before she could respond, loud cracks of thunder echoed down the corridor. Then, chaos erupted again as the window frames bent and twisted. A cold wind burst into the room, whipping around them, carrying with it a whisper of something sinister. "Get the children." An unseen voice roared from outside, deep and echoing, chilling the very marrow of James's bones. Suddenly, lights dimmed. Everything froze for an instant, and the silence was deafening. With a loud pulse, shadows sprang to life around them, darker than night, threatening to consume everything in their path. "James!" Chloe's voice pierced through the panic, pure and terrified. "Daddy!" Mia cried, clutching at him. Before he could respond, a swift motion swept through the room. It felt surreal, as another explosion cracked against the walls, sending debris flying. A figure slipped through the newly formed opening, silhouetted against the chaos, and time slowed. James's breath caught in his throat. It was him, It was James, a mirror image, standing as if drawn from the deepest realms of his mind. A version of himself, but different, sinister, with a grin that chilled him to the core. A surge of confusion washed over the room, time folding in on itself. This wasn't just about hiding secrets. It was about an identity he never knew he had. "Who are you?" James shouted, voice trembling, a skeptical incredulity swirling in the air. "I'm you," the figure replied, voice smooth and cunning. "But I'm everything you could have been, and more." James felt his breath hitch in his throat. The figure standing before him was a mirror, but twisted. Fear twisted in his gut. The room grew quiet, anticipation thick in the air. "What do you mean? You're me?" he demanded, eyes wide, heart pounding. "I'm you," the shadowy figure said again, stepping closer. "But I'm the version who never backed down, the one who took charge." A grin spread across his face, brimming with arrogance. "You're weak. You hide behind others, while I seized power." The weight of those words hit James like a punch. He staggered back, gut twisting with disbelief. "No, you're not me. You're a nightmare. A mistake." A chuckle escaped the shadow's lips. "A mistake? No, I'm the realization of our potential, the truth you refuse to accept." He gestured dramatically, as if this was all some grand play. "They had a vision, you know. They want what we could become." Suddenly, the lights flickered violently again, casting wild shadows across the room. The girls huddled closer to James, their small bodies trembling. "Daddy?" Emma's voice wavered, and James pushed back the rising tide of fear. Just then, another explosion rocked the corridor. The deafening sound tore through the room, rattling the air. James looked toward the doorway as smoke billowed in, thick and dark. The atmosphere shifted. Tension buzzed like a live wire. "Everyone back!" Blake shouted, moving to shield James and the girls. But before they could react, a shrill energy cut through the chaos, like a siren or a warning. James felt something shift inside him, an unsettling understanding creeping in. "Daddy, I'm scared," Mia cried out, clutching tight to his side. The fear in her voice clenched around his heart. "What's happening?" The shadow smirked, leaning closer, eyes glinting with malevolence. "Don't you see? You can't protect them from the truth. They're not just children. They're part of something much bigger, a legacy, a future. It's time to embrace that." In that instant, a realization hit like a wave crashing against the shore. "What do you know?" James bellowed, rage igniting. "What is this about?" But before the shadow could reply, the ground shuddered, and a massive figure burst through the door. Crashing into the room, it was a gigantic machine, metallic and ominous, glimmering under the hospital lights. Jagged edges gleamed like teeth. It moved with an impossible fluidity, a creature of technology and darkness. "Target acquired," it droned, voice cold and emotionless. "Elimination in progress." "What the hell is that?" Blake shouted, pulling James and the girls backward. The creature advanced, and panic surged through the air like fire. "Move, everyone, get out!" Sarah yelled, eyes wide with desperation, scrambling to gain control of the chaos. As the massive figure lunged, a blinding light erupted from within it, a surge of energy that tensed the air, pulsating like a heartbeat. James shielded his daughters as the world around them exploded into chaos. "James," the shadow shouted, panic creeping into its tone. This wasn't supposed to happen. Then, in a flash, the blinding light enveloped them completely, and time felt distorted. A moment stretched into eternity. When the bright light faded, they found themselves not in the hospital room, but in a vast, sterile hall, surrounded by stark white walls. Confusion and disorientation washed over James. "Where are we?" he gasped, looking around. The familiar faces of the girls were now overshadowed by his growing dread. The shadowy figure grinned, revealing jagged teeth. "Welcome to the facility, James. The real birthplace of your daughters, a place where everything begins and ends." James's heart raced as the realization dawned. The choices he had made, The secrets he thought he unwrapped were deeper and darker than he could fathom. All at once he felt his sanity teetering on the edge. "What are you talking about?" "Everything you believed was a lie," the shadow replied, voice dripping with delight. "They were created here, and now it's time for you to decide their fate." The air turned cold, and James felt the ground slip beneath him. Fate? He felt a deep, bone-chilling fear settle in his chest. "What do you mean?" But just as he reached for answers, another explosion sounded, shaking the very foundations of this new world they had entered. Shadows bloomed in the distance as the lights flickered violently. Chaos promised to reignite once more, pulling James and the girls into its dark embrace. The truth of the moment turned their reality upside down, leaving nothing but questions hanging in the air. And as the shadows closed in, James understood. This was just the beginning. James felt the ground quake beneath him, confusion swirling like a storm. The shadows beckoned with a dark promise, but he wouldn't let fear consume him. "Girls, stay close," he shouted, voice trembling with determination. The large metallic figure loomed, a machine of terror, but something within him ignited, a fierce love, a need to protect. "Daddy," Mia shouted, her eyes wide, reflecting the chaos. He could see Chloe and Emma trembling, but when he glanced at them, he felt determination rise. They were more than just test subjects, more than the shadows fighting for dominance. They were his daughters. In that moment, a surge of energy crackled around him. "Get back," Agent Blake yelled, positioning himself in front of the girls. James could see uncertainty in the officer's eyes, but in that chaos, a flicker of hope ignited. "Sarah, you has to help us," James cried, pulsing with urgency. "We can't let it end like this." As the figure lunged, the ground shook beneath its weight. A wall of fire erupted. "No," Sarah shouted, reaching for a control panel that flickered behind her. "Stay back." "Hold on," James said, pulling his daughters closer. He felt their breath quicken, quivering against his skin. He lost track of everything else, the room, the sounds, even the fears. His daughters' lives were at stake. In a flash, Sarah slammed her palm against the panel, triggering a blinding light that surrounded them all. Warmth enveloped James, a shield against the chaos. The machine paused, flickering hesitantly. For a brief moment, they stood suspended in a bubble of light. "Now," Blake shouted, pointing toward an exit. Rushing through the doorway, James guided his daughters, heart racing. "Go, go, go!" The sound of chaos clawed at their heels as they raced down the sterile corridor. Each step echoed louder than the last, their lives depending on it. Then, just as they reached a junction, Sarah caught up. "It's not over," she gasped. "We need to destroy the mainframe to stop this." Her eyes pleaded for understanding. "What? We're not leaving you," James shouted, eyes darting at the approaching shadows. "We have no time. You have to take them," Sarah insisted. "I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request." "I'll hold them off." "No," James bellowed, panic clawing up his throat. With a deep breath, he met her gaze. They shared a fleeting moment of understanding, the sacrifices they would both have to make. "Stay safe. Always," she promised, a fleeting smile striking through the chaos. And with that, Sarah turned, charging back into the storm, leaving James with the screaming echoes of her courage. "Keep moving," Blake urged, grabbing James's shoulder as fear ignited determination. They sprinted toward the final door, the cool metal heavy against their palms. With each pushing step, James felt a glimmer of hope for his daughters. Their innocence. "We'll protect them," he promised himself as they burst through and emerged outside, gasping for air. In the distance, the horizon painted itself with fiery colors, but they were free. All that mattered was that they had each other. "Daddy," Chloe cried, hugging him tight, her warmth radiating against the coldness of what they had faced. James knelt, wrapping his arms around his trembling girls. "You did so well. You were so brave." A tear slipped down his cheek, bittersweet. We'll figure this out, together. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with streaks of purple and gold, the threat still loomed over them. The unknown fate of Sarah, the mystery of his daughter's true heritage hovering like shadows. But that moment, free from the chaos, felt right. Together, they stood, the future uncertain, but they faced it united. "Daddy, what happens now?" Mia asked, wide-eyed. "Now, we find our way," he whispered, holding them close. And as he looked at the horizon, he knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning. You need to subscribe right now to the channel. Don't miss the next exclusive stories that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now, because your support helps the algorithm and gets this story to even more amazing viewers. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what happens next. I want to hear from you. And share this video immediately with at least 5 friends who need to know this outcome. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans know how important it is to support the channel. Let's keep this adventure alive together.